Hey everybody, Hunter back again from Showtime Studios. We're going to start on the wood graining tutorial that a lot of people have been wanting to see. And this is actually a good area to do this because, like I say, you're not going to see a lot of the back of this car. So it'll give you practice. And if you make a little bit of a mistake or whatever, or you don't really like how it come out 100%, it's no big deal because it's pretty much hidden. Now, when we get into the exterior of the body, this part out here, we'll be using the same process. So, this won't be hidden. So you'll have to get it right on that. Or, there's ways with the products that I'm using that you can go back and change this without a whole lot of, issue, without having to strip anything down as far as the whole body or whatever. But what we're going to start out with, the first thing I need to mention is we sprayed this in the last video. And as you know, we sprayed the console and we sprayed the wheel wells back here. Well, I forgot a couple pieces. This vertical section right back here, I needed to be the same color as the console because that's actually my trim color. And when you set the side panel into place, let me get it bent here the right way. There we go. When we set the side panels into place, I wanted this step up to be the same color as the side panels. And then also this trim that goes all the way around this area here, I wanted it to be the same color. I didn't want that to be wood grain or bare metal foil or anything like that. I think bare metal, you could do it in bare metal foil, but it would get a little too busy for me, so I'm not going to do that. So what I did is I went back in with the same color that we sprayed uh, on the rest of the interior panels, and I just freehanded all this in and went all the way around this whole outline of the wood part of the floor. So what we're going to do next is I started putting some spots down in here, but I want to start from the very get-go on the wood graining. So now that we have this edge that we want to keep, we're going to have to do a little bit of tape work. So that's the first step we're going to do. I've got my 1/4 inch wide or 6 millimeter wide Tamiya tape here. And we're going to go in and we're going to tape off the Tamiya paint that we've already laid down on here. And I'm just going to sit that right there now because I don't have my magnifiers on and I really need them to do this because I want to be very precise on where I set this tape down. And hopefully everybody can see this on the camera. Well, I get it set where I want it. Okay, and what we're trying to do is just set that down. We just want to cover up that painted edge that we have there. There we go. We got that covered up. And just to be safe, this is something I don't normally do, but it's something that you can do. If you've got this already sprayed, say, this part's done and you're doing this wood graining, you can go ahead and take a piece of the wider tape and we're going to cut that straight across in the back. And that way we can just overlap that right onto our Tamiya tape. And we can slide that forward and just to get a cover over the console. You don't have to do that. If you're good with your airbrush, you don't have to, but that's just to show you how to do it there. And then next we're going to go in and we're going to do some small pieces right here on the sides of the trim. And we're going to do this a little bit different. I'm actually going to overlap these, hang them over top of the actual wood grain. And we're going to burnish that down a little bit. And then we're going to go in. I've got a brand new number 11 in here. And like I say, I hope everybody can see this. I'm looking at what I'm doing and not looking at the camera on the monitor. But I'm going to go in and I'm going to cut this right along the edge of our panel. And this doesn't have to be super precise. I mean, as long as you're covering up the edge for the most part, you'll be good. So we're going to take that out. And taping is always time consuming, especially when you're doing this little detail work like this. It takes a little while to get everything taped and the way that you want it. Now, if you notice, I'm using a Q-tip to burnish this tape down. That's something I found works well for doing this. And that'll get it, burnished down good so you can guide the knife along the edge. So we're going to come in, and the other thing about Tamiya tape is it's also transparent, so you can see through it. You can see where you're starting and stopping with the knife. So we're just going to come down that panel and very lightly come across there. Turn that around. And again, like I say, I mean, all of this is not really necessary back in this area because you're not going to see the majority of this. But if you were doing it in an area where you can see it, this is the technique that I would use on it. So there we have that piece in. And now we have a little piece right over here that we need to do right in front of the wheel well. Same procedure. Just going to burnish the tape down, overlap it onto the other. And you're just using the edge of that raised panel to guide the knife, not putting a lot of pressure down on it to cut the tape. Pull that out. And now we get to do it all over again. Fun, fun, fun. This is almost like sanding and scraping. Same procedure, put the tape down. Now, another way that you could do this, and on this side, we'll go ahead and I'll give you an option on taping this. You can go ahead and do that there. And instead of taping or cutting each individual piece, you can go ahead and put your tape down. This is just another way to do it. Another option in this game called modeling. And as you can see, we're taping everything at one time. And then we want to come across the back here and tape that. And now you can come in with your knife and you can go ahead and cut your tape just like we did before. But doing it this way, you don't have to start and stop with your cutting and your taping. You've already got all the tape down, so now all you're focused on is just cutting the tape out on your edges. And we'll pull that out. And to tell you the truth, guys, this was one of the reasons why I didn't want to do tutorials up to this point, is even though I knew how to do this stuff and I do it on a lot of models time and time again, I was very hesitant on doing it on camera. I didn't want to make a bunch of mistakes like I normally do when I'm doing this process. And I guess that was one of them things. I don't know. I guess you call it pride or whatever you want to call it. But I'll be the first one to admit I make mistakes all the time on every build that I do. Anybody that says that they don't is lying. And that was just something that I did not want to get on camera. But as you can see, this series, we're doing a lot of this stuff right on camera. And if I make a mistake, it's going to be right in front of you. So, but I've had a lot of nice comments. A lot of people really, giving me kudos on doing this series and how much my videos have improved and things like that. And also attitude. And so we're just having fun with this, teaching some of the new guys out there and doing the YouTube thing, supporting the community, and hopefully helping out some fellow builders. Okay, there we go. We're going to hold this up here and let you get a view of what we have going on. And you can see that we have that taped all the way around the wood grain area. Now, on to the next part of the project. We're going to go ahead, as you can see, we went in on the last video and we did a little bit of spotting with the same color that we used on the interior. And the more I looked at it, the less that I liked it. I wanted the wood grain to have a base color a little bit different than the interior color. So what I chose was XF57, and this is buff from Tamaya. And this is thinned about a little over 50-50. In fact, I've used that before on wood graining. That's why it's thin to that ratio. So what we're going to do, and that's really all the taping that we need to do. You could tape up the rest of the body if you wanted to, whatever you feel comfortable with. If you have, the skills to go in and do this without getting overspray all over everything, you don't need to tape all this stuff. But for you guys that are a little unsure, or you want to make sure that you don't get tape on or paint on anything, you can take your wider masking tape, like on these wheel wells that we already have painted, and you can just lightly come in and do something like that right there. That's all you need to do. And like I say, this is the same thing, same procedure we used on the console. Normally, I wouldn't cover up any of this stuff, just because, I've practiced enough and have the experience and know my airbrush well and the paint that I'm spraying through it. But if you want to be, 100% safe, by all means, go back in and tape this. You can't go wrong by doing that. And it doesn't make you any, lesser of a person because you went in and taped it. There's, like I say, there's guys out there that can do it without taping, and there's guys out there that probably really should tape it. But whichever way you want to do it. But we're going to go ahead and put some tape on here anyway, just to show you, the process. So there you go. We have all that taped up now. Shouldn't get any overspray on the other colors that we have sprayed in there. So we have the buff in the airbrush. The airbrush is set at the same settings that we had before. And I'm just going to do a little bit of a test here. I'm going to turn the paint flow down. There we go. That's about what I'm looking for. And now we're going to go in and we're going to spray this whole section in here that we want wood grain. Now this is going to be the base color. So here we go. We're going to go in and spray all of this down. And like that, I do have the paint turned down on this part because I want to make sure that I'm not getting a lot of overspray everywhere that I don't want it. And you can make this a little blotchy if you want to. You don't have to put down a dead even coat. If you get a little bit of blotchiness in it, that's actually a good thing. It's going to represent wood a little bit better. And I'm spraying very close to the surface because I have very little bit of paint coming out. So I've got the gun probably 3/4 to an inch away from the surface. We're still spraying at that 15 to 16 pounds of pressure, but we have the paint turned way down. And as you can see, well, we'll hold it up here and I'll show you. I'm varying, a little bit across the panels. I'm not trying to spray each board identical with the same color, the same amount of paint. I'm trying to break it up and make it a little bit more random. I'm trying not to put the dots in the same area on each board. It just makes it look more natural. Okay, and there we go. We're going to hold this up here. I'll show you how it came out. I'm going to get this piece of towel here and put on the back side of it so that we can get a good view of what we just sprayed. And that's what it looks like. You can see that it's kind of muted a little bit. It has light and dark spots in it. That's what we're after. That's what we want for that stage there. Now, the next thing that we're going to do, and this is where the fun part begins. There's a product out there, of course, Vallejo. This is their model wash, and it is the brown. And this is a pretty good product. I use a lot of it. We also have it in the black. I have it in a grimy color, but this is more of like a reddish brown, I guess you could say. And what we're going to do with this is go in and pretty much do exactly what it's designed to do. We're going to do a sludge wash over top of what we've just put down. And I'm just going to get a little bit on the brush here. We're going to come into the panel that we just sprayed. And we're going to run, and you can do it one of two ways. You can do it onto the brush, or you can drop a drop down into the where you're working, and you can move it around that way. Whichever way you want to do it, there's really not a wrong way to do this. But what this will do is it's a little bit darker than the base color. It's going to help drop down into the wood grain that's already cast into here. Drop a little bit back here. It also darkens up around the edges of your division points here where our bare metal foil is going to go, and creates a nice shadow effect that makes that look like an individual. It makes each slat look individual when you get the bare metal foil on, because it creates a shadow around the edge of it. And we'll actually go back in and do a little bit of an overall wash on it when we get the bare metal foil work finished. But this is just a real thin down Vallejo model color is all it is. You can make these yourself. Actually, I had a question come up from Whitey's Workshop. Wanted to know if, since I found the Tamiya panel line accent colors, if I'm doing my homemade washes anymore. Yes, I am. I'm still using them. I will always use them. There is things that I can do with those that you cannot do with the Tamiya panel line accent colors. The panel line accent color is a very nice product, no doubt about it, but there's some things that it will not do. And doing an overall wash like this on something is not really what it's designed for, and it just doesn't come out as well as making our own. So yes, we will be using the homemade way that I done it in the tutorial video several times. And now we're going to start pulling a little bit of this out of here. Just take your brush, drop it on the cloth, and when you dip the brush back in, you will notice it'll pull some of the color and the paint out of the around the edges and stuff like that. That's what you want. You want to kind of make it random and just draw a little bit of that out. Leave it in other areas, and don't try to match it on each board. Try to do it, stuff random. You want it to look all random when you're done. You don't want it to look consistent, because then it kind of looks, it looks manufactured. It doesn't look like real wood. And this is not hard to do. It takes a little bit of practice to, go in and get it the way you want it. I'm just disturbing the wash now. I'm bringing it up in some areas, and I'm dragging. Basically, we're creating what you could call knots in the wood, and just adding a little bit more graining to it. And we'll hold it up here and show you what we look like at this point. I mean, it's a fun thing to do. I really enjoy doing wood grain techniques. Um, it's just something that I've always enjoyed doing. And I mean, it's looking nice. We're getting there. Let me see if we can get a little bit closer. You can see the variance in the each individual board. So that's what we're after on that. Now, as far as this step, you want to let that dry. It usually takes about a half an hour or so to dry all the way out. And also, you notice that we sprayed it with the Tamiya straight out of the airbrush. We wasn't putting a lot down. So pretty much that paint was drying in the air between the airbrush and the part. So that was already, to the point where it was, you weren't going to disturb it with this water-based wash that we're putting over top of it. So don't worry about that. Let's see, what else do we need to touch on with this? Basically, just let this dry about a half an hour or so. You can take a hair dryer and speed it up, which is another technique that I've done. And I'm not going to do that on camera because it's very noisy. And next we'll come back in and we'll start adding a little bit of hand detail as far as the knots, if you want that. Some people like knots, some people don't. It just, it's whatever you want. But we'll do a little bit of that, and then we're going to do the top coat that we're going to put over top of this to really, bring it and make it look like wood. So that'll be coming up in the next episode. Again, if you have any questions or concerns, leave me a comment on this video. We'll be more than glad to help you out. And as always, this is Hunter from Showtime Studios, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.